All right, it is 12 o'clock. I want to begin on time so we can end on time. I want to welcome everyone to Jacksonville Rotary Club's Zoom at noon. We continue to gain momentum as our wonderful members spread the word about this meeting format. We have a great program ahead. A few housekeeping items, though. To keep the ambient noise sound to a minimum during today's program, everyone except our presenters will be on listen-only mode. This should help alleviate the background noise. If you have a question during the program, please utilize the chat function at the bottom or side of your screen. We'll have a Q&A at the end of the program. First, though, we have a lot to be thankful for. I know a lot's going on, but there is a lot to give thanks for. So John Cooksey is going to lead us in an invocation. John, are you on the call?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, please pray with me. Father, as we live through this unprecedented time of coping with COVID-19, give thanks that Rotarians can still find a way to meet and continue to find ways to improve lives around the world. We give thanks to all the people who work on the front lines every day, our healthcare professionals, food service workers, grocery store workers, and all those that allow us to continue living our daily lives. For those that have contracted coronavirus, we pray for caring and healing. For those that are particularly vulnerable, we pray for safety and protection. For those who experience fear or anxiety, we pray for peace of mind and spirit. For affected families who are facing difficult decisions between food on the table or public safety, we pray for policies that recognize their plight. For public officials and decision makers, we pray for wisdom and guidance. Grant us peace, comfort, and healing, and help us be ever mindful of the needs of others. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, John. Our prior Zoom meetings have been a big hit, and they're available by video, and they are also listed on our website. Speaking of our website, we are constantly updating it to keep you informed about the latest Rotary developments. I want to thank our amazing webmaster, Bill Learn, for your amazing work and dedication. Past District Governor Percy Rosenblum is serving as chair of this year's nominating committee. Nominations are now open, and they will select 5 board members and our future president, our president will serve for our years 2022 and 2023. Since our last meeting, the district has canceled RILA and RI due to the COVID-19 cautions. Finally, your board leadership will be reaching out soon to ask if you are healthy or if you're making your payroll, if there's anything we can do. We may be the largest Rotary Club in Florida, but we reach that distinction because we care about every member of this club. This is your organization, and as a family, we can and will help one another. So please let us know how we can assist you as we all help our larger community. Wyman Duggan is a member of this organization. He's a shareholder and a member of the board of directors at Rogers Towers, where he practices land development and regulatory law. Representative Duggan is completing his first term representing District 15 in the Florida House of Representatives. So we are pleased to have him as today's introducer, and we look forward to the presentation ahead. Wyman?
Thank you, President Tom. First of all, let me say thank you for your leadership in setting up this format and keeping the meetings going and keeping the fellowship going. I hope all of you are safe and that your loved ones are safe and healthy. And I look forward to the day when we can all break bread together in person again. Thank you, Tom and Sherry, for making it possible for us to have this fellowship today. I want to say what a pleasure it is for me to introduce my friend Lawrence Kurzius. He is the chairman, president, and CEO of the McCormick and Company. And since joining McCormick in 2003, he's held many executive management roles, including president of U.S. Consumer Foods, president of International Businesses, and president and chief operating officer. He was promoted to CEO in February of 2016, elected to the company's board of directors in November 2015, and was elected chairman of the board in 2016. He was recently profiled by Forbes magazine as one of the top 40 innovative leaders for 2019. He joined McCormick through the acquisition of Zatarain's, where he spent 12 years and was president and CEO. He graduated magna cum laude from Princeton University with a bachelor's degree in economics. And I'm pleased to say that I suspect he could do what he does from anywhere in the world, but he is a proud Jacksonville resident. For that, I give you Lawrence Kurzius.
Well, thank you, Wyman, for that generous introduction, and I hope I can live up to that incredible build-up, and that even though I'm doing this remotely, that it is interesting. And one of the things I've learned from having sat through a number of these kind of online chats and presentations is that brevity is part of the secret to success. So I'll try not to ramble on, but if I get too long, give me the hook. Thank you also. I'd like to give a special thanks to Tom Bryant, who is the one who asked me to speak today. Tom has been a good friend since my family and I moved to Jacksonville 12 years ago. Many of you are probably wondering, what's this guy from the Baltimore company doing talking to us here at the Jacksonville Rotary? I live over here in Ortega, right on the riverfront on Morven Road, and I've got some great neighbors over here also, Preston Haskell on one side and Palmer Clarkson on the other. But Tom, you could with Tom Bryant, you could not ask for a better ambassador of goodwill for the city of Jacksonville. Thank you all for having me today. So before I begin, I'd like to express my sincere sympathy, in addition to the opening prayer, for everyone impacted by the COVID-19 crisis. And I'd also like to acknowledge and thank all of those who are working at the front line to care for those who are ill or to keep us safe, healthy, and supplied with food and other necessities of life that make it possible for us to get through this crisis. Originally, when Tom asked me to speak, I was asked to talk about McCormick and our sustainability and innovation programs. But given the change in the world since that original invitation, I'm not going to say that much about sustainability or innovation, but we'll instead spend some time on our response to COVID-19. And I'd like to start with a brief overview of McCormick, because I'm assuming that many of you are not familiar with our company. So McCormick was founded in Baltimore in 1889 by Willoughby McCormick. His young nephew, C.P. McCormick, took over the company when Willoughby unexpectedly died in 1932 while he was trying to raise money to keep the company afloat during the Great Depression. CP had a different way of thinking about business, and he raised employee pay, introduced a principle that he called the power of people, and a system of participatory management called multiple management, along with a host of other ideas that were considered radical at the time but are considered mainstream business practices today. Today, McCormick is the world leader in flavor. We have about a little over $5 billion in sales, and operate in two business segments. The first is our consumer segment that includes brands you probably know us for, such as McCormick, French's, Frank's Red Hot, Old Bay, Zatarain's, Lowry's, Stubbs Barbecue, and many others in the US and in over 150 countries around the world. Our Flavor Solutions segment provides flavor solutions to the food service and restaurant industry and to the consumer food manufacturing industry. So our flavor systems are in the products of the top 10 global restaurant companies and in the products of the top 10 consumer food manufacturers. So if you've enjoyed pretty much any seasoned snack chip, or a fast food hamburger sandwich with that special sauce, or fried chicken coated with someone's secret recipe, or a latte whipped up by your friendly barista, or a carbonated beverage, you've probably had a McCormick product, whether you knew it or not. In the quick facts department, we have 118 facilities around the world, including 49 manufacturing plants and about 12,000 employees. We source over 14,000 raw materials from over 80 countries, as you can imagine, in flavor and spice and herbs. There's a great diversity of materials that come from some places that are difficult to do business sometimes. We're listed on the New York Stock Exchange under the symbol MKC, not to be mixed up with MCK, which is McKesson, the drug distributor. And we're part of the S&P 500. McCormick is a dividend aristocrat, having raised dividends for 34 consecutive years. McCormick's business strategies are directed toward three strategic imperatives: growth, performance, and people. I'm actually not going to talk much about our strategy today. I just want to say that we think of ourselves first and foremost as a growth company. We're the fastest growing of the big food companies and are relentlessly focused on understanding and responding to consumer trends and keeping our brands relevant with consumers, especially the younger generations who, it may surprise you to know, cook more at home and have a higher preference for spicy, flavorful, and healthy foods than older generations. We have 5 principles that underlie everything we do at the company. They are a passion for flavor, the power of people, that same principle that I spoke about with CP McCormick introducing, the taste you trust, driven to innovate, and purpose-led performance. Our sustainability programs come out of purpose-led performance. We have a broad set of goals that are aligned with the UN Sustainable Development Goals. At the Davos World Economic Forum, we were recognized on their annual list of the most sustainable companies in the world, ranking number 22 overall and number 1 in the food industry in the world. We published our latest purpose-led performance report in January, and for those of you who are interested in delving into that, you can find it on our website. So now let me turn to COVID-19. McCormick is experiencing all stages of the COVID-19 crisis. We have 3 plants and nearly 3,000 employees in China, including a plant and nearly 1,000 employees in Wuhan, which is literally ground zero. So we've been engaged with the crisis since January. We have 3 plants in Italy, which is the epicenter of the outbreak in Europe. So we've been engaged from the beginning of the global portion of the outbreak. And of course, we're sharing the experience here in the US, where we're approaching the peak. From the beginning at McCormick, we've had 3 priorities for managing the crisis. The first is to ensure the health and safety of our employees and the quality and integrity of our products. Simply put, our people need to know we're taking care of them, and customers and consumers need to know our products are safe and trustworthy. Second, business continuity is a priority, especially keeping our brands and our customers' brands in supply. In the President's coronavirus guidelines, only 3 industries were called out as having a special responsibility to operate normally, and food supply was one. The Department of Homeland Security list of essential industries includes food, and we worked with our industry associations to make sure that food ingredients were added to that list as well, so the food supply chain can function. Nearly every country in the world has done similarly, and this is very important both for the safety of society and for people to be able to shelter in place. And also, it's important for our employees to know so they can understand why they're being asked to continue to work. The third priority is to come out of this crisis as a stronger company. There are going to be companies that are winners and losers in this crisis. And some are going to deliver, some of them are going to fail. Some are going to stay true to their long-term goals and values, and some are going to make expedient decisions that they're going to regret later. So broadly, here are some of the things that we've done at McCormick. First, we put in place the travel restrictions, social distancing measures, and sanitation measures that you would expect. Our first travel restrictions were put in place in the first week of February. We learned from our experiences in China and Italy and have good distancing protocols in our plants. Our plants are highly automated, so employees normally are not in tight proximity, unlike what you may be reading about in the media from the meat industry. We have the advantage of being in food, so sanitation is already at a high level with hand washing and hand sanitizing stations at entrances and throughout the facilities as a normal practice. We've required those who can work from home to do so. We upgraded our support system to handle up to 10,000 simultaneous connections in February as we saw the risk of spread from China. If you recall, we have 12,000 employees, so this covers us quite robustly. It's actually been a great learning experience for us as a company, and I would expect a high level of work from home really ongoing forever, even after the crisis. For those who can't work from home, mainly people in our plants, distribution centers, and technical centers, we've added a steadily increasing level of protective measures. We've done training on avoiding spreads. We provide masks. We have temperature checkpoints at the entrances to our facilities. We've taken social distancing measures like separating our shifts by an hour to avoid overlap and contact between different shifts. We've added extra locker rooms to allow greater spacing. We put a simple mechanical measures like a pegboard with 10 tags on it at the entrances to locker rooms. If there are no tags available, it means 10 people are already inside and no one else can go in until someone comes out. And we've done simple things like marking correct spacing on the floor in assembly areas, or where employees might have to wait in line, or on chairs in cafeterias where employees are taking their meals. We've also added a new set of benefits for those who are impacted by COVID-19. So for those who have to come to work in our facilities and can't work from home, we've added a pay premium. I don't want to call it hazard pay. It's more like a reward pay, recognizing the extra heroic effort that they're taking. We put in place up to 12 weeks of paid leave for employees who need to take care of their kids due to school closings, and we expanded that to elder care as well, reflecting the fact that many people are concerned about having elders in nursing homes at this time. We put in place full base pay protection in the event of any suspension of operations. And I want to be clear that this is not just for the US. When our China employees were on lockdown, we continued to pay them. We're doing this in Europe too, so it goes all the way to the beginning of the crisis. We have put in place an escalation of action based on symptoms or suspected contacts first. That includes quarantines, track and trace of contacts, escalating up to a suspension of operation for deep sanitation. And because we're responding to symptoms and not waiting for a test result, we've had a number of cases where we've actually suspended operations due to false alarms. But we have viewed it as better safe than sorry. Our strong actions to protect employees, all of which have a cost, have been largely successful. We have had 10 confirmed cases worldwide. All of them have come from community spread. We've had no internal spread cases. We also began supply chain contingency planning in January. So our global sourcing organization has actually been a competitive advantage. We've had no customer shortages due to a raw material shortage, which is one of the things we believe is going to put us in a stronger position coming out of this crisis. We know a number of our competitors have been unable to source simple things like garlic, which is not going to serve them well when they come back out. Now, what have you not heard? Well, you didn't hear me talk about cutting. We take a long-term perspective on our people, on our brands, and on our business. So we are not having layoffs or pay cuts. And in fact, we gave our normal merit increases earlier this year. We're investing in our brands with advertising and new products. We're not cutting our dividend. And in fact, those of you who are shareholders will know our regular dividend checks are due out next week. We are not in some of the industries that have been catastrophically impacted by the disaster, like the cruise industry or the travel industry and entertainment industry. And so we just don't have to take any kind of measures that get us through this on the backs of our people, or that force us to take short-term measures that undermine our long-term competitiveness and strength. So I mentioned McCormick is experiencing all stages of the crisis, and that also includes the early stages of recovery in China. Our plants in China are now operating normally. Our offices are open. Our people are coming in on an A-B shift. Keep up some level of social distancing and separation. Everyone is wearing masks, and that is likely the new normal. Restaurants in China have reopened, but traffic is very light. Many independent restaurants are out of business. Consumers are cooking at home more, just like they are here. In Europe, we never had to close a facility. Even in Italy, all three of our facilities there were able to continue operations. We do have one plant in the UK that makes sauces for the quick service industry, quick service restaurant industry, that was idled for a few weeks due to no demand from those customers because they were shut down. But even that has restarted as well. And we've started making our own masks. So we got a mask making machine. It's not our primary business, but we're making our own masks. We have also started making hand sanitizer in the U.S. and Canada. targeting first to meet our own needs so that we aren't competing with the medical need, and then we'll decide what to do with any excess that we can contribute to the national effort. We've also pledged $1 million in incremental giving over and above the roughly $8 million of charitable giving that we do a year, specifically for COVID-19 relief. And we've pretty much gone through all of that already, and so it's likely we'll up that further. Our current business conditions are really simple to describe. Anything related to restaurants or food away from home is just getting crushed. Our restaurant customers are really hurting now and have either closed or greatly reduced operations. And if China is any guide, their recovery is going to be gradual, and I would suspect may even take years before consumers have the kind of confidence that they once had, to congregate in maybe crowded areas with people that they don't know, to dine out. On the other hand, anything related to cooking or eating at home is up high double or even triple digits. Schools are closed, restaurants are closed or restricted, people are working from home. That adds up to a massive increase in the number of meals prepared and consumed at home. For us at McCormick, it's like having the Thanksgiving and Christmas seasons all at once. Our e-commerce business also has been accelerated by 3 to 5 years. We've gained market share in all of our core product categories as consumers turn to brands that they trust and retailers struggle to keep bestsellers on the shelf. I'll just give some examples. We've had a massive surge in searches on our digital properties for recipes on cooking and baking. Kids are at home, parents are looking for things to do with them. There's been a huge surge in cooking. Nestle talked about how their Toll House chocolate chips are through the roof. Our vanilla extract is up triple digits. It's comparable to the kind of cooking activity that we would have around Christmas time during what is normally a really slow season for us. Food colors and other ingredients related to kids' activities also are up triple digits. We've had huge download. We have among our recipes, we also have recipes for fun stuff like slime as a kids' activity. The huge number of downloads of that recipe and great purchase of the products that go into making it. But things like French's mustard, mustard is a kind of a sleepy category normally. French's mustard is up close to 100% for the last 6 weeks. Frank's Red Hot sauce, close to 100%. You can put that stuff on everything, as we say, and it's a great way to spice up your food. But even things that are kind of everyday items like our herbs and spices, are up very strong double digits. These are not stock up items where people are going to hoard them. I mean, someday there's going to be a huge glut of toilet paper on the market. These are products that people are not buying to hoarding behavior, but because they're really cooking more and they need them to make their meals at home. So that's really how current business conditions stand. So I'm going to bring it home here. So in the Great Depression, I mentioned CP McCormick took over the company. During that time, he raised pay, he introduced the power of people as a principle, and inside of McCormick, we're still talking about it to this day, and many of our investors do as well. It is my hope that the actions that we're taking today are going to be remembered equally well by future generations of McCormick employees. So that was a lot. Before I turn the floor back to Wyman, I want to again thank those who are working often heroically to keep us safe, healthy, and with the necessities of life during this crisis. McCormick is going to come out of this fine. I hope all of you do too. And that concludes my prepared remarks. So Wyman and Tom, back to you.
Thank you, Lawrence. We are grateful to have you at the helm of McCormick's. It's an incredible company, and that's evident. And your leadership through this crisis is a glowing example of what a great leader is. So I really appreciate that. We have time for some questions, and I think we had some come in, didn't we, Sherry? Sherry, are you with us?
Tom, I have a question.
Yes, Wyman.
So Lawrence, thank you very much for that great presentation. I was struck by the fact that you implemented internally restrictions and protections in early February, which was, well ahead of when many other certainly public institutions felt the need to publicly do that. And I'm just wondering, what were the data points or other evidence that you were seeing, presumably in December, January, that resulted in those measures being taken so early, for which I commend.
Sure. Well, I mentioned that we have a facility in Wuhan, and a lot of people there. I actually was in China in January myself, and just missed out on the fun by a couple of weeks. They're in early January, and they were talking about this new disease that had come up. But everyone was celebrating Chinese New Year as normal. I attended a Chinese New Year party. There were probably 1,200 people there, and we all cheered and toasted and shook hands and everything just like normal. And then it became more and more evident that this disease was more serious. About maybe a week later, the Chinese government admitted that there was human-to-human transmission, which is something that had not been revealed previously. And we saw, and as the lockdown was put in place in Wuhan, we saw, the massive preparations that the government was taking. We also looked around and said, well, half the people in that city have already left on the holiday. The genie is out of the bottle, so to speak. It seemed inconceivable that if it was as contagious as it was, that it wouldn't spread. So, we didn't put in masks and temperature checks everywhere all at once, but we put travel restrictions in place pretty early. We did put masks and temperature checks in place throughout our facilities in Asia at that time. And then as soon as we saw the outbreak in Italy, we said, well, this is it. It's going to come everywhere. And that's when we escalated to the rest of the world.
Thank you. Sherry, do we have, I saw a number of other questions come in. What do we have?
Yes, we do have a few questions, President Tom. One of the questions is, what will the COVID-19 crisis impact your acquisition strategies?
Well, this is a very investor-oriented question. McCormick is a fairly acquisitive company, and so I will keep my comments to what we have said in the public forums for this. But the short answer is no in the long term. But certainly, it's hard to imagine doing anything in the next few months. We see a great deal of uncertainty in our business because the depth and extent, the depth is pretty clear, the depth of the impact of COVID-19, but the duration is not really clear. And it's not clear to us even how the downturn in food service and the upturn in at-home consumption balances out, for us as a company. So we currently aren't giving investors guidance for our own results, and we don't believe that any acquisition target could really give us credible guidance as to their results right now. So I think we need a few months of stability before there's any, it's likely that we'll be doing any deals. With that said, part of coming out of this stronger is looking for opportunities. And in particular, there are likely family-owned businesses right now who are heavily impacted and are thinking to themselves, well, my multi-generational stewardship of family wealth has just been exposed to this huge risk, and I don't want to take that risk again. So we think that there are going to be some family-owned businesses that are likely to be sold. We have I'll say a target list of roughly 1,000 bolt-on sized flavored targets in the world that we are interested in. Many of them are privately or family owned, and a certain fraction of those get ripe every year and have a liquidity event statistically, or need a liquidity event statistically, and that creates opportunities for us. And that is probably going to accelerate and give us some good opportunities for companies that might not have chosen to to sell previously.
Lawrence, I know we're getting close to 12:30, but do you have a minute to stay for a couple of additional questions?
Sure. Glad to, Tom.
Sherry, what else do you have?
Sure. The next question, they're asking, how has the virus impacted the supply side of logistics, especially in raw materials?
Well, one of our advantages is that we've got a tremendous global sourcing organization. I mentioned in my prepared remarks that we source over 14,000 raw materials from over 80 countries. We have people on the ground in most of those countries. We have long-term relationships, and having people on the ground able to deal with the suppliers, deal with local authorities, and in particular deal with local transportation has been a real advantage for us here. And it's a place where having scale really makes a difference, because we have enough scale where we can afford the resources to do this. And we're not trying to add them right now on a crash basis. These are our regular resources. I mean, we regularly have people who are based in China, India, and so on. Where places where we do our sourcing. We've got a very long-term relationship over in Madagascar, where the primary vanilla growing farmers co-op is actually founded by McCormick, and where people are regularly on the ground, and we have got good relations with with authorities. So we've been able to keep things moving. I mentioned we haven't had any shortages due to lack of raw materials, and that has at times involved moving mountains. Literally, the only thing I can think of, there was a particular specification of ancho chili that we ran out of for our Mojave Hispanic food subsidiary based in Los Angeles. That resulted in about $3,000 worth of product outages. But I mean, I can take it down to that granular level. We've really been able to manage through this so far.
Maybe one more?
Okay, sure. One of the other questions is, has McCormick been affected by the tariffs in the last 2 to 3 years, and what steps has been done to adjust here?
Yeah, the tariff situation has been has created volatility that is unwelcome. It really, whether we have tariffs or not, I'm all for free and fair trade, and I think that, and I'm a Republican, and I appreciate as a Republican and as an American the tough stance we've taken with some of our trading partners who have abused their relationship with America. As a CEO of a global company, if there are tariffs that are applied uniformly, fairly, and are predictable, well, then they apply equally to all of us, and we all can adjust our business practices to them, and so. I'm just going to leave it at that. Free and fair trade a stable system of tariffs is a good thing.
Lawrence, thank you. I can't thank you enough for your friendship, your leadership, for all you do for us locally, for our state, and for our country. You're a great leader and a dear friend, and I appreciate that. Wyman, thank you also for your introduction and for your friendship. I want to thank also everyone who's worked so hard behind the scenes. I'm confident we're going to get through this, as we have throughout our 108 years, and we'll do it together, just as we always have. Our upcoming meetings will feature more helpful information. We're also actively exploring ways to help our communities in the recovery, and I believe we'll have something to report to the club soon. We will not meet next Monday, April 27th, because we'll be attending the District Assembly training, which is Friday the 24th and Saturday the 25th. Each member will receive an email from District Governor-elect Rich Turnbull. Our goal is to have at least 20 of you sign up, and it's going to be via Zoom, so it's very easy to do that, and it's a great way to connect with Rotary. Many of our committees are working in full force, and they're holding meetings via Zoom. We are This is an interesting concept. We're planning to begin virtual socials, coffee, lunch, and happy hours. Jim Agee and Kelly Shaw are heading up the effort. Details will be on our website soon. We want you to stay safe and we want you to stay connected. I invite you to join us for the next Rotary at Zoom at noon on Monday, May 4th. We will feature Jacksonville Rotarian and member of our club and City Councilwoman Randy DeFore. She has a presentation on the issues surrounding the proposed sale of JEA, what happened, why the sale collapsed, and what it means moving forward for our city. I want to thank everyone for joining us and for all you do in our community. This program is adjourned. Thank you.